Welcome to Command Control Power, a weekly podcast hosted by 3 certified members of the Apple Consultants Network, drawing from over half a century of combined experience. We talk shop, interview vendors and colleagues, and share what we've learned while operating our technology consulting practices. This is Joe Saponari of CyMac, and my 2 co-hosts are Jerry Zigman of MacWorks and Sam Valencia of the HCS Technology Group. For the freshest content, a peek behind the scenes, and more candid conversation about running our businesses, dealing with clients, fixing tough technical issues, and everything else you love about Command Control Power, we invite you to join us on Patreon so you don't miss any of this great content. Go to commandcontrolpower.com and click support. Pledge monthly, and you can instantly subscribe to the patron-only shows right in your favorite podcast app. Once again, to join us on Patreon and get the latest patron-only episodes, visit commandcontrolpower.com and click support. We hope to see you there, and thanks for listening.
Jerry, by my watch, we are recording a day later than we usually do, so I want to know why that is. Can you fill us in?
I lost at least a couple of years off my life in the last 24 to 48 hours. So it was Monday morning, and I had a little bit of downtime in the morning, did some family stuff, didn't have any appointments. And we have a treadmill down in the basement, and it's a quick way for me to get a little bit of exercise. So I'm on the treadmill, and just out of the blue, and it was raining cats and dogs all day long and the night before, and big deluge of rain just like coming down, and a little bit of rumbles in the distance. And I'm on the treadmill, and I hear, bam! Like the whole ceiling, the whole lower ceiling shook. It's a suspended ceiling because it's a partially finished off basement. So all those little aluminum supporters for the tiles or whatever, they all rattled all at once. And I ran upstairs, and my wife says that she was vacuuming and she saw that this big feature tree that we have out in our front lawn, not more than 20 feet from our house, was hit by lightning. So I'm looking at it. I don't see anything. And she said, oh, it was smoking just a minute ago. And I'm looking at the tree just from outside the window because I can't go outside because it's coming down in buckets. The tree looks intact. And we had more discussion. And then she's like pointing out something to me. And I see that there's this 10-foot vertical strip where the bark stripped off. It's about 2-inch wide that runs right down to where the tree like forks out from the trunk. And then I see on the trunk, there's these shorter vertical strips, 2 inches wide, where it looks like it's just like bare wood. So it looks like somebody took some sort of a big scalloping tool and just dug a divot lengthwise up the tree trunk.
That's very cool. It's amazing that you saw that, and that I just can't believe like the force that goes into that and how it just stripped the bark down that whole strip.
Right. And we have these long pieces of bark of wood that were in the yard. And then when I went out there to actually assess the scene, where the lightning finally stopped when it hit earth, it actually kicked up the earth a little bit. So there was soil lifted from the ground from this lightning strike. Now, to add a little bit more interest, this feature tree it's pretty old. It's got to be at least 75, 80 years old. And it was starting to split at the trunk because the upper canopy of it was becoming so weighted, and it was like pulling the trunk apart. If you could imagine a V, and then at the bottom of the V, of course, is the trunk, was starting to split. So we had some tree experts come in, and they took 3 separate steel rods, and they ran them through the trunk of the tree. They drilled right through end to end, and then they bolted them together and then torqued on the tree until the tree came together. What? So they used pretty amazing. I have video of this.
Wow.
And yeah, these guys were incredible. And we had these 3 separate rods running horizontal across the tree trunk. I'm pretty darn sure that's what conducted the electricity. Yeah. And we've had lightning, but this tree has been fixed probably 2 or 3 years ago. And you could see, not with any dramatic effect, where it jumped from rod to rod and it followed the ends of the rod down to the ground. So it's great. It's not great, but the tree looks fine. The tree doesn't look like we had to call somebody in to saw it down. And it looks like everything is pretty much intact except for this strip that goes down the tree. So we go back inside and there's no internet. So I go down and I look at the modem The modem has all lights on. The Ethernet plug where we go from the modem to the router, that's on. So I power cycled the modem, all the lights come up, still no internet. And I've got a Ubiquiti system at home. I've got a Dream Machine Pro SE, and I got a Unify Ubiquiti 16-port PoE switch above that. And I think I was using like a Netgear modem. And it's an EMTA modem, so that means it gets phone and it gets internet. So the phone's working. So I'm like, this is really weird. The modem seems to be getting a signal. So then I take my laptop and I plug it into the modem, and I'm not getting anything off of that. But the modem could have been provisioned to do pass-through or bridge, but I don't think they can. So I wasn't getting any signal off the laptop. So I power cycled the modem again, and now I'm power cycling the Dream Machine Pro SE. And I look at that, and I'm getting the message, even though the cable's plugged in, it's saying plug-in cable for internet. So that's weird. And I'm getting partial lights on the Ethernet ports. One light where I'm plugged into, and one light where my Synology disk station is plugged into, and all the other Ethernet lights are dead. So that's weird. So again, like I said, I power cycled it, nothing. I thought, okay, I have a backup. I had a hard drive in there. So I pulled out the hard drive and I factory reset the Dream Machine Pro SE, following the normal procedure steps. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. So after lots of blood, sweat, and tears, I determined, initially I thought maybe what happened was the internet was knocked out at the pole. When the lightning struck, Comcast lost service. So initially I had a Comcast Xfinity call to come out to the house and take care of that. But as I started to dig a little bit deeper, I forget exactly how I arrived at the modem must be shot. But that was my inclination, that there was something actually wrong with the modem. So I go through this long search of trying to find an EMTA modem. I can't find one initially. I get a stopgap modem at Best Buy that's just going to give me internet. I hook that up, and so now I'm able to connect and get on the internet with the stopgap modem that I got from Best Buy. And this is now we're progressing cut into the next day. We've got no internet at all day Tuesday into Wednesday. And I'll talk more a little bit about that. But at this point, I've got internet now off the modem, and I try to get the Dream Machine. I try to resuscitate the Dream Machine again, and it's not coming up. I'm not getting any communication lights on most of the Ethernet ports. It's got 8 ports on the Dream Machine Pro SE. Only 2 ports are lighting up, and it's still telling me to connect the cable. I think we got a problem with the Dream Machine Pro SE. Now, how readily available are they, right, to get from Ubiquiti? And yeah, you could get something else. But as luck would have it, there was a time when I was buying a little bit more Ubiquiti product. I had a brand new Dream. Yeah. I had a brand new Dream Machine Pro SE in a box, not even unwrapped at all, just sealed in a box that I was slated to upsell some client, upcharge him like, these aren't available. And unfortunately, we're going to have to charge you a surcharge for this. So I took it out of the box, no hesitation. And I pull that out and I get it going and I restore from a backup. And most of the stuff on the network comes back up, but I'm getting nothing off of the 16-port switch. Now, wow. So why is this happening? And I'll cut to the chase in a moment. So this 16-port PoE Ubiquiti switch is also shot. So what happened was we have an underground power line that runs to a pole a short distance on the other side of the driveway. And in that line is also the coaxial cable from Comcast that goes to the house. And what must have happened is when the lightning bolt hit the earth, it sent a charge maybe through the ground. It was picked up by the power and picked up by the coax. Now, the house did its job. This is an old house, and we got some old wiring and some new wiring. But for the most part, I could say the house didn't have any issues. A couple circuit breakers were flipped, but that was about it, minimal stuff. So this had nothing to do at all with current, because the modem lit up, the Dream Machine Pro was powering on, the 16-port switch was powering on. This had everything to do with the Ethernet port. And what happened was a surge went through the coaxial cable, hit the modem, And the thing that it took out was the single Ethernet port on the modem. It traveled from that to the Dream Machine Pro and then took out the 16-port switch. You would think you would see evidence that this happened, but there was no evidence of it at all. But it's the only thing that could have caused this to happen.
Yeah, I think that's good sleuthing. Like you said, the devices are not just locked up. They look like they're powering on. It's not like a power supply issue or just a essentially like logic issue on the device. It's probably, as you surmised, it's something to do specifically with those ports. And that's an obvious path that it could travel in through the coax, into the modem, and then out the Ethernet port on the modem and into the Ethernet WAN port on the router, and then even through that to the switch, which is that to me sounds pretty surprising that it found a path all the way through and took out all those devices. But it does make sense logically that it could get that way. And so yeah, that's crazy, pretty devastating, pretty huge lightning strike. Glad you've been hoarding all that UniFi equipment because it definitely came in handy there. And I'm curious, so what would you do differently to try to prevent this next time?
The crying shame of it all is, and by the way, in case anybody's asking, was the utility or the technology cabinet grounded? The cabinet wasn't grounded, but any sort of power that was being drawn from any of the devices was in a separately stationed watt box, big, heavy duty, like 50-pound car battery size, but in a horizontal fashion, surge protector, redundant power supply kind of thing. There's just no way that it took any kind of a charge through the electrical system. So this all could have been solved, or at least I could have probably saved most of the equipment if I had gone on Amazon and spent $30 or $40. So what you do is you buy it almost looks like a little filter that you put in your coaxial line, and it provides lightning strike sort of block. It's only good for one use pretty much. Once it blocks a surge like that, you have to replace it. And then you can get, for very little money, $15 Ubiquity sells one, APC sells a $30 one, and Ethernet lightning protector. It's just looks like a little dongle, and Ethernet plugs on either side, and you just plug in and plug out. It doesn't impede performance. It's rated to gigabit speed. I guess if you had faster than gigabit speeds, you have to pay up for something else different. But again, I could have saved all this equipment that I have to replace. So the modem, by the way, is I have to get another EMTA modem. And the only one I could find that Comcast was on their endorsed list and was this Netgear Nighthawk. Everything that Netgear makes is a Nighthawk, right? But it was $375 from Amazon, direct from Amazon. So this is not Jack of all spades electronics reselling some sort of goofy thing at 2x or 3x. No, this is the Netgear going price of this EMTA modem, $375. It's actually $350, but when you add in tax, it's $370. So give me $375. Yeah. And then, of course, I'll have to replace that Dream Machine Pro, have one on standby, because I like to have one on standby, and a switch. And you can't get a 16-port PoE switch right now from Ubiquity. Lesson learned. And you see this stuff and you think, I don't need that. What's that for? Yeah. That's just going to slow me down. I need to be fast on the internet.
I suppose hindsight is 2020. You can look back on this and say, I should have had these things. And maybe the situation of your house and having like basically a lightning rod in your tree 20 feet from your house could have maybe you thought ahead and put those pieces in place. But I don't know that I'd go around starting recommending this to every single customer that I'm working with. But it does give me pause to think about, do I have any customers that are at greater risk for something like this? And it's a minimal cost, like you said, right, to put these pieces in place?
Yeah, it's $30 of materials.
Wow.
Oh, man.
To save you $375 and a couple days of downtime at the very least. Not to mention, the backup UniFi Dream Machine and et cetera. That's, it's a no-brainer. But I had the same kind of attitude as you did. I don't want to plug in some weird thing, some weird filter in between my incoming connection and my modem. Sure. I've even had that recommendation in the past, and who knows how valid these recommendations are. These little coaxial surge protectors are built into some interruptible power supply, battery backup devices.
Those will slow you down.
Right.
Yeah, there's YouTube videos about that. That's going to impede performance. So I wouldn't take some trip light thing that has plugs on it that are all shielded and surge protected and then coax out. I definitely wouldn't get my client into that.
Gotcha. So you the standalone one, maybe we can link to that, the one that you found doesn't have that issue. Because yeah, I've heard that from cable providers in the past and was like, oh, I don't want to be the one to test this. We just typically don't use it. But of course, those same cable providers have also said in the past, don't plug the modem into the battery backup. Plug it. It has to be plugged directly into the wall. I've heard them say that. And I'm like, this doesn't seem right. You got to be kidding me. I'm not. The whole point of a battery backup is to keep the network equipment specifically up and running most of the time. So that didn't sound right. So I wasn't really sure what to believe on that. But yeah, there's nothing like primary experience to teach you a lesson and give you a story. This now is a good reason to sell a client on, I can't guarantee everything's going to be working all the time 100% and it's going to prevent all surges. I can tell you what happened to me and what I did about it. And let's do it. Let's improve your system. A couple hours of time, maybe $50 of hardware or whatever, and you go in and make some improvements. You can hopefully leverage this to make a couple sales.
The downside to this is that we talked about it last time we had a major power outage and here in the Northeast, and we discussed it on the show. But you want to feel like having your legs cut from underneath you. Having no internet is one of the saddest things in the world. Yes, it's a first world problem. We use it to turn on lights. We're using Alexa, just very simple stuff. No fancy pants home automation. However, the interesting thing too is, let's say you said, oh, that's okay. I just want to play some music off of my network. So the Dream Machine Pro will work if you don't have an internet connection for your local network. But trying to use something like Plex, because we have a Plex server running off of the Synology, that has trouble actually starting up. That won't work. You have to change a lot of settings to get into a Plex. So if you want to stream music from your local network, so you have a lot of boundaries and a lot of limitations. And of course, if you're using your hotspot on your phone, you eat through that very, very quickly. In our house right now, we have some college applications going out and people sending information back and forth. So we really need a live connection. We got by and we got through the day and a half outage. One little sidebar to this. So we're doing a Unified Protect just from the doorbells, front and back. That's what I was using the hard drive for, because there's an accommodation for a 3.5-inch hard drive that you could put in your Dream Machine. And so we had months of data of little recordings, people coming and going and stuff like that. For some reason, when I just simply moved that drive to the new Dream Machine Pro, when I did the full restore, all my settings came back beautifully, including all the Protect stuff, but it could not reference the recorded information on the drive that I shifted. There might be some secret incantation to do that, but after a couple of days, I was too stressed out and to just even screw it. We don't think anybody's robbed the house in the last 2 months, so I think we're good. But it was...
Might miss out on some cool squirrel action.
I could have sent those to Joe. I know. That's kind of a crime.
I was going to ask you if any of your camera angles captured the lightning strike. That would be the thing that I'd really want to see.
That's a great point. No, we have no cameras pointing towards that area, so no.
I'd start monitoring that tree carefully, though, at this point. It sounds like it was already teetering and patched together a little bit, and now it's had a pretty significant lightning strike. I wouldn't have a picnic under it anytime soon.
Even on a sunny day. Yeah. I know. It's the only unfortunate thing, Jerry, is I was thinking if the lightning struck that tree, if it actually got struck down, you could have made a cool baseball bat out of the natural, maybe made it to the big leagues one day, but that didn't happen. That'd be cool. But I'm thankful that your whole family is safe and everything like that. That was pretty close. What was that, 20 feet you said?
Yeah, it's about just 20 feet. But if actually it did hit the carport, we would have made the deductible and all this would have been covered. It cuts both ways, Sam.
Yeah, I agree. I'm glad you guys are all safe. Replacing a few pieces of equipment is not the worst thing in the world. And we all learned a little bit from it. And it's funny you bring up, I was going to ask you, were you able to stream music because you have it stored locally on a server? And you've already addressed that. And it's just another example of how this stuff does not degrade gracefully. If it doesn't have an internet connection, everything just craps out. It's just, I don't know what to do. I can't get online. I don't even know. It's like, why can't I just still control the lights? This box is over here. The light is over there. It's all plugged in. They should be able to talk to each other in theory, but it just doesn't seem like a big enough problem with enough real world benefit for people. It should work. All the stuff should degrade gracefully, but it's expect internet. It's just so ubiquitous that we're not planning for the internet to go down, let alone like a router to have a major glitch like that or your switch to be fried. I guess if the uplink port for the switch is fried and the routers, the WAN and LAN ports are fried on the router, I mean, there's nothing doing the routing. So in that case, like, I guess it's expected that component A can't talk to component B. Again, it's the internet routes around problems like that. Maybe our home LAN should find a way to route around issues. Like, why not just specify some redundancy from the start, have 2 routers and 2 switches and some resilient power? And I don't know. I mean, it's easier said than done in practice, but it's just disappointing that this stuff doesn't degrade gracefully.
And even if I had the Unify LTE failover, I couldn't fail over because it took out the router.
Yeah.
But you're right. If on a slow day, you buy a bunch of these things and you think, which clients can I call and scare the pants off of them and get a service call?
Yeah. It is a good lesson because I've been trying to push the Starlink and it's hard to find buyers really. When they haven't experienced downtime recently, they're not that motivated to have that backup connection. But the thing I'm learning from this is that's not enough just to have a backup connection. You really need to protect the equipment pretty significantly. And that goes for coax too. And I don't know, do the standard like cyber power guest boxes, are they going to be okay in a lightning strike? Or is that just going to take out a lot of this equipment at the root level?
Yeah. And the other thing too is, let's say you've got a client who's leasing or renting a modem box from Xfinity or a modem router, and you put one of these inline from wherever the DMARC is, before it heads into the router, you've got this little inline filter. The next time the Comcast guy comes by, he's going to look at that thing, he's going to cut it off, and he's going to toss it over his shoulder. It's not like that's standard practice for them to put those in, and I don't think they have those on their truck. It's just they're not going to introduce some other piece of equipment that could possibly create more downtime for them or more problems on their network. They just want a clean connection point at the modem router to the pole, as little hops as possible.
Yeah, it's interesting too. You bring up like, where do you stick the little filter, the surge filter? Because some people have the line comes in on the wrong side of the house, and then there's a booster there that's plugged into some old electrical outlet. That's and like that boosts the coaxial signal over to all the TVs and over to the modem, and it's barely got a usable signal as it is. And you put one of these in, it could affect things, I imagine. And also putting it in near the modem wouldn't help necessarily if there's other equipment that's on the other side of the house, some kind of splitter or booster kind of thing on the coaxial line. So you have to have a pretty good understanding of the network overall to determine where to put this in. You might even need a battery backup to protect that splitter booster thing if there is one. Yeah, there's a few layers to it. It's what's the perfect setup. You can only have so many protections in place, and then at some point it's just you leave it up to the universe.
Also, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that Dave Provine brought up on Slack. I was asking if anybody knew of any Lightning suppressors, and the one for Ethernet was the APC one that I was looking at. So he provided a link on Amazon, but we'll put this in the show notes. But he was saying to be sure to ground to a real ground and locate that connection, that surge or that lightning suppressor, far from the equipment you want to protect. He says, don't put it in the rack or on top of the cable router. You want to have it at least a couple of feet away. So that's a good tip.
That is a good tip. So a real ground, meaning like the third prong on an electrical outlet, would that count? Or do you need to find a copper rod going into the physical ground or something?
If you've got a tree that's got 3 rods, any one of those 3 rods would be good. You could ground it to that.
Wow. Glad you pulled through with the minimal Ubiquiti equipment wasted, because it is so hard to get right now. It's at a premium. You did go through a Unified Dream Machine Pro SE and a 16-port switch, though?
Yeah.
Wow. That's rough. Do you think you're going to get warranty coverage on those, or?
I'm going to try with the Pro, but I believe the 16-port was bought through Amazon through some third-party Joe Schmo back in, I think, 2019. So there's no warranty on that at all. So we'll see.
You had your own stockpile. That's a good thing.
As part of my Google Gripes corner, I guess we can call it, I got an email. I don't even know if this email was from Apple or Google. I'm pretty sure it had to be from Google, but I copied this to read it out on the show. We created YouTube Premium to provide an uninterrupted YouTube experience, so you can get closer to the videos, creators, and mute it. So I'm like, where is this going? And it's blah, 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 comma, we will be increasing your premium family plan price to $29.99 per month. I'm like, whoa, hold on. What? $29.99. I'm paying $22.99 right now for YouTube Premium Family so that Ashley and I can both have YouTube Premium. I just don't like ads. I can't stand watching ads or seeing ads. So I pay for as many things as I can to remove ads, and YouTube is one of them. I think YouTube's a great service. I think there's a lot of great content there. I learn a lot. It's a lot of good entertainment and whatever. I like YouTube, and YouTube Premium is, for me, it would be tough for me to go back to YouTube with ads. And so it's worth something to me. And I guess I was choosing to pay $23 a month for it, which is already not cheap for just YouTube. And most people get this for free, but now it's $29.99 per month. So I'm like, that's a big jump. I've heard of companies lately going from $7 to $8 or whatever. Like, that's a $1 increase. I mean, this is a significant increase. So I looked into it. I'm like, sure enough, I'm paying $22.99 per month right now. And they've increased it to $29.99 per month. And I read on and it says, Apple will continue to manage your payment. I'm like, okay, because I subscribed through Apple's subscription app store, basically. I did it that way. I didn't go through YouTube on this or through Google. And then they have this little throwaway line here. Note that the rate for premium family plans signed up via our website will be $22.99 per month.
Huh.
Okay, that's the price I was paying. So basically, what Google is implying here is that I should probably cancel my Apple one that's being jacked up to $29.99 per month and just resubscribe through Google's own website. Wow. And that's a very clear implication of this. It's interesting that they're going out on a limb and saying that you can go to our website and sign up for less money. That's a big leap. I'm surprised if they're not getting dinged by Apple in some way for that. I thought they couldn't make it so explicit what the price would be on their website, but yeah, so that's just a little PSA and an interesting kind of intersection between Apple and Google.
Dang. So did you switch your payment already?
Not yet. I don't see any reason not to. I'm wondering if I'll lose any, I don't know. I think it's still hooked up to my email address. So if I do cancel through Apple and re-sign up with the same email address from Google, I imagine they still have whatever channels I subscribe to or just history, things like that.
That's 30%. I mean, $22.99, $7. That's, yeah, my goodness.
It's a big increase.
Great. And then there's a little throwaway line, like you said.
Then I'm wondering, like, what was the price for premium through their website? If I've been paying $22.99 per month to Apple, maybe, I don't know, maybe like Google's now allowed to charge more if you're signed up through Apple, then you charge a different price from their website, or maybe they didn't used to do that and now they do. At least I can get the old price if I do this, but I'm curious, was their website much cheaper up until now? I probably should have done this sooner then.
Yeah, I would imagine that since the email just came, that something only recently changed, but I'd be curious to backtrack that information and do some deep dive investigation and find that out. But at least you can save money now moving forward. No, you're not going to save money. Yeah. You're just paying the same. So
yeah, I cannot spend more money, basically. I can save spending more money.
I guess that's a good thing then.
Right.
I signed up for streaming services after I cut the cord, which has now been a number of years. They all were so cheap. And I'd signed up for Hulu, then it wasn't good for certain things. It was like the streaming service really was in its infancy. And I switched over to DirecTV Stream, and it was like $35. I remember. I was like, man, I'm saving a ton. And now it's like $70. It's literally 100% increase. And I was like, I'm leaving you guys. And they're like, okay, see ya. And I looked around and everybody's the same price. They know it. And they're just like, we can charge you this because we know you're not going anywhere.
Yeah. The other thing is corporate profits are up, and most people are dealing with inflation right now. And we're all aware that, yeah, inflation means prices are going up, but corporate profits are going up more than inflation. And so clearly the big trend is, okay, in their defense, they probably don't want to have to raise the price repeatedly as inflation might continue. If they had to raise the price by a couple bucks today and a couple bucks in a few months from now and then next year. So I get like that they probably want to preempt that and raise it once and account for what the overall like cost of inflation will be to their bottom line, fine. But I just think that it's a really good opportunity for these big corporations to be, yeah, sorry, the cost of everything's going up. But meanwhile, they're raising the price for a lot of this stuff a lot more than they need to just to keep pace with inflation. And what choice do we have, to your point? If that's what everybody's charging, the price is what it is. It's not negotiable. And what can we do?
Yeah. I don't know, man. I guess we can't do anything. We're just stuck. Jerry, you cut the cord a while ago, right? You don't have any kind of service.
I pay a little bit of money for a couple of music streaming services, but the stuff on TV, I'm not doing Hulu. I've never done Hulu. We do Amazon and whatever we could scrape off the internet. Cough.
Be a shame if lightning were to strike your internet connection.
Oh, man. Too soon, Joe. Too soon.
It's too soon.
I'll switch gears from our TV watching habits and talk about, at this point, I think I started talking about this on a Patreon only show, but essentially we had a rough go of client losses and things like that. And then I felt like we weren't doing things very well. And I really started to take a hard look at what we do and our processes internally to get better at it instead of some old school things that we do. So I started thinking and doing some research, and then I was thinking, I know a lot of customers that always talk about this Monday.com. I've heard it a number of times at this point from customers large and small. Just like it's a mom and pop, they're using Monday.com. It's a 20-person company, Monday.com. So I'm like, what is this Monday.com? So I went in and I took a look, and it's essentially a project management portal, but it's got a lot of bells and whistles and things that make it fancy to look at. The biggest thing for me is that it has a lot of dashboards and automations that you can do. This is like exactly what I was looking for. Why wasn't this monthly maintenance done? Oh, I'm sorry, it slipped my list. And I'm like, it's this guy's personal list. How does that really help me? How would I know if it slipped his mind and he forgot to check it off on his whatever notes app or whatever he's using? So I started to realize how inefficient we were at some of this stuff. And all cards on the table, there were some things we were just not doing well. And coming back to it, I looked at Monday.com. We created some dashboards where we can have maintenance tasks by customer and statuses, and then you assign the task to a person. And I can say, this belongs to Matt, this belongs to Sammy, or this belongs to me. And I can show the statuses of like still working on it, or this has been completed. And we can create automations that say when it's done, create a new one for the coming month. And all this stuff that I'm like, I didn't even realize how automatic this could be as opposed to, like I said, just individual in nature. And we're just now starting to deploy it. And just like, I have a whole new dashboard that I'm using now with all of our customers, and then all of the different monthly or MSP services that we offer, whether it's like MDM or Backupify or network management. And I have this whole big chart that just shows if this client is participating in it or not. And then we can see that we should follow up maybe, and we should do Backupify for this client for this cost because they're not using it yet. And why aren't they using it? And so long story short, it's just become my main focus for the last 2 weeks. It's blown my mind as to how much I'm now on top of things and on top of the guys that are doing work for me that I can see, hey, why wasn't this done? I can just review it centrally and not have to ask, was it done, or log into a client and see if their firmware updates were done for Unify or something like that. So I just want to put it out there. It's pretty fascinating, and it's not expensive terribly we're 4 people.
Can you give us an idea of the cost?
Yeah, it's $50 a month it's supposed to be up to 5 people. They don't do like individual seats, like 3 seats, 5 seats, and then higher. So we had to buy the 5 seats. I tried to wiggle into 4, but they weren't having it. That's for the standard plan. There's basic, standard, premium, all this stuff. But it also has integrations. So like it can integrate with my Zendesk. It can integrate with Slack. So like a ticket can generate a board in Monday. It has single sign-on. It has all that fancy stuff that like you would only think big companies can do because it's so expensive. But it's really, I don't know. I don't know how much it would suit every listener out there, but I think for me, it's totally changing my approach now for accountability, especially. And
what is it doing for you that you couldn't, let's say, do with creating workflows in Daylight with checklists and, deploying that to your employees, and you have a shared task list that they could check off as they accomplish it? Is it just that you just never bothered with that aspect of it, or it's just a little bit more intuitive for you?
Yeah, no, we did for a while. We had some, we went back and looked at some of them so we could recreate them in in Monday, because we had some and we'd check it off, and we could always go in there in Daylight and have a look. And then it's not bad, but it was too manual for us, where I'll automatically get emailed at the end of the week when X, Y, and Z clients haven't received this maintenance. Having those automations and say 4 tickets are undone for Sammy, I can just jump on and be like, hey, Sammy, what's with these 4? So it's like telling me along the way and making it more clean. And then, yeah, intuitive wise, I just love the colors. It shows me like done when it's green, and it gives me like party favors start blasting out. And I'm like, oh, this is awesome. I completed something this week. And you can create status boards and end dates and all this stuff that really just does it for you. Once you build it in, I'm totally in. I'm sucked into this product right now, and it's doing a hell of a lot at the outset. I know it's like I'm in the honeymoon phase with it. You could ask me in a month and be like, oh, Monday.com sucks. But right now I'm liking it a lot.
And how about for the lone entrepreneur like myself? Would I just be sending messages to myself? And so it wouldn't
pretty much. That's what I was saying. It's not going to be for everybody.
So you would say it's probably not well suited for the single pony shop.
Yeah, definitely not. I think it's cool, but not worth it. I think even once you get one tech or you have someone that works with you just for accountability purposes that you can collaborate on things is very useful. And that's for a team of 2 going to cost on the basic side, it'll cost you $24 a month. That's not too bad in considering all the things we pay for. Joe pays more than that for his YouTube service.
That's right.
That's because he likes to buy everything through Apple and he doesn't mind paying the Apple tax.
Yeah.
Yeah, the App Store has my privacy in mind, and I don't have to worry about my credit card. And I don't know, what's the pitch again?
I don't know.
So I'm curious, Sam, on that, because I'm thinking as you're saying, the maintenance done on this client, what's the difference between a ticket in Zendesk and something that you put into Monday.com, or is it integrated to that level where you're talking about seeing the status of multiple tickets by client that are in Zendesk, you're seeing that status on the Monday dashboard?
Yeah, but also I'll take Unify updates for the ones that have on-prem controllers, right? I'm not going to put in 40 tickets that just clog up my Zendesk of Unify update per client. It's just a big mess of stuff where I can have just like a board of clients and it shows the status checks of all of them in one view, as opposed to just an onslaught of tickets that have to be manually closed.
Interesting.
And then it's that piece of it that's very laborious if you have to do that all in Zendesk. But if you wanted to, with the Zendesk integration, you can say if this ticket has this tag, like maintenance, create this item on the board. And you could blend the two together. I haven't seen a real need for that just yet because I'm trying to reduce my tickets, not add more of them. So I'll decide if this is something I can share by blurring out some of the obviously private information, but just give people a visual of what I'm talking about, perhaps. Because for me, I'm seeing it right now as I'm talking about it, and I can see how powerful it is, but maybe just talking about it doesn't give it its due.
Yeah, visual would be good. And you can leave the client info in there, and then we'll just send them marketing about how they really should update their Microsoft Teams because of the latest 0 day. And
I can't trust you guys.
If your provider isn't emailing you about all the latest updates and threats, then you really probably should look into a new provider.
Screw you guys. I can't trust to talk about this on this show. Who am I going to talk to?
No, that's very cool. I'd love to see a dashboard of what you're working on. And you had me intrigued with dashboard in general, because I like me a good dashboard. It's hard to integrate right. Some of this stuff. I have my dashboard in the Numbers app, and a lot of it's pretty well automated, but it's garbage in, garbage out. I need to put in good info and find ways of piping that in from the existing tools. It's very appealing to have a system like you're describing where it's integrated with your ticketing system. That's huge right up front.
Yeah.
What's this called? Monday Night Football? Is that the name of the product?
MondayMac.com, I think, is going to be Sam's affiliate site.
Ding.
Is that available? We should check.
Jerry does his voices of customers of all kinds.
Am I on the cloud?
Joe spins his deeply detailed yarns all the time.
I have a whole story about this.
Sam is on the road again, phoning in from a hotel.
At least we know where I am.
Half a century combined of Apple experts.